So today we are going to go over lesson 8.05, which is on summarizing data. So it says Tiffany is the chief editor of Timber Middle School's newspaper club. She's very pleased with the article submission so far. However, she must ensure the summaries being made in the articles are accurate based on the graphs. Otherwise, readers will be misinformed. She definitely wants this issue to get a good rating by other students in the school. Looks like Tiffany must use the statistical process to interpret, summarize, and compare the data to understand fully what each graph represents. So our lesson objectives today are: I can summarize a data distribution presented on a graph. I can determine and calculate measures of central tendencies from a graph. I can determine missing values when given the mean of a data set. So some of these things are going to be familiar. We'll talk about mean. We'll talk about mean absolute deviation. You'll see dot plots, histograms, box plots. And then we'll learn some of these new things about summarizing, calculating some of these central tendencies by looking at those visual representations. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the page and we'll go ahead and dive right on in. So understanding the big picture. So it says Tiffany loves the phrase, "A picture is worth 1,000 words," because it refers to the idea that a single image can convey the same information as a large amount of text. And it is one of the reasons why graphs of all kinds can be found in newspapers and magazines. The same goes for graphical displays of data. Some graphs can help you determine measures of center and spread. So these are some visual representations that we have already seen before. The first is a dot plot. So a dot plot is a graphical display of data that uses dots to show the frequency of each data value. This graph is best used to display small data sets. Because all data points in the data set are shown, the mean, median, range, and mean absolute deviation can be calculated. So remember, each dot represents an individual piece of data. So we have 8, 9, 9, 10, 10, 10, 10, 11, 11, 12, and 13. So mean, median, range, and mean absolute deviation can easily be calculated from this because you can just write out your list of numbers. The second display that we've looked at is a histogram. A histogram is a graph that uses vertical columns or bars to show the frequency of data or intervals. So for 58 to 60, we know we have 2 people that have that height, 61 to 63, 6, 64 to 66, 12, 67 to 69, 7, 70 to 72, 1. So this visual is helpful for larger data sets. So if you have a big set of data, this is helpful. Because the actual data points are not displayed, only general conclusions can be made from a histogram. So this is important. The data points are not displayed, okay? You don't know in this range of 58 to 60 what these 2 people, what their height actually was. It could be 58 and 59. It could be 58 and 60. You don't know. So you can make general observations and conclusions, but you can't give the exact mean, median, mode. Well, you can give mode here, but you can't do mean and median here. So no exact measurement of data can be calculated. However, you can determine the size of the data set. So you can figure out how many people were surveyed in a histogram. You just have to add up all the heights. So 2, 6, 12, 7, and 1. When you add that all up, that would tell you how many 6th graders were surveyed. The last one is a box plot or a box and whisker plot. A box plot is a type of display in which the data are divided in 4 equal parts called quartiles. Remember, each quartile represents 25%. So the middle 50% found in the box is 50%, okay? And then the lower and upper 25% is found in the whiskers. So this is 25%, 25%. Remember, each part, though, is also 25%. So 25, 25, 25, 25 to give you that 100% total. So this graph is also used for larger data sets and to analyze the distribution of the data as a whole. In a box plot, no individual data points are seen. Therefore, only the range, median, and quartiles can be determined. So similar to the histogram, okay, but here we can actually find the range and median because we know the exact start and we know the middle here for the median. So now we're going to look at these a little bit more deeper. So as an editor, Tiffany must put her skills to the test. She plans to ensure the summaries are correct in her articles. Let's see how to summarize data by reading each graph. So it's important to read the title, look at the data, look at labels. So the title of the graph tells you tells you the display is about a class activity. Doesn't say what type yet. It says the unit of measure is the number of dandelions. It says there are 11 dots on this graph and they represent the total number of observations. An observation is another way to describe a recorded data point or occurrence. So each dot represents one piece of data. The data has a range of 8 to 13. So the smallest number is 8, biggest is 13. So you can find the range, do 13 minus 8 to give you 5. And then there's also a peak here at 10. The one that appears the most is 10 here. So there's 4 of them, 4 dots at 10. So all this information allows you to summarize that for this class activity, the majority of the observations were 10 dandelions with 4 occurrences. So there's a bunch of observations that you can make with the dot plot. Histogram, we're going to look at the summary that can be created from the histogram.
The title of this graph.
That was the box plot, or sorry, histogram. Now we're going to look at the box plot or the box and Lister plot. So there are a bunch of observations that you can make with the box plot as well. So there's some practice problems down here. It says, which type of graph allows you to summarize the data by reporting the exact range, determining the median, and seeing the shape of the distribution. So you have to be able to find the range, median, and see the shape. So this would be a dot plot. You can determine all the measures of center and variability because the actual data values are present. Dot plots also reveal the shape of the distribution. So remember, each dot in the dot plot represents a piece of data. So you can find all of your measures of center and variability from this. And then it also gives you the shape. Example 2, what summary can be determined from reading the graph below? Okay, so here our title is family size. We have our number line 1 through 9, but our first dot starts at 2, last dot at 10, and then it's the number of people in your family. So there's a variety of conclusions you can make from this dot plot. And here are just a few of them. The title reveals that families were surveyed to determine the total number of people in each family. 13 families were surveyed. If you count up all the dots, you would get 13. The unit of measures is the number of people in the family. The smallest family has 2 people, and then there's 2 of those families. The majority of families have 4 people, and there are 5 occurrences there. So 5 families with 4 people, which creates a peak. Peak is something where it's like very high. So there's a peak at 4, and the maximum number of people in a family is 9. And there's only one family that has 9 people. So you can make all those observations at once, or maybe you only made 2 or 3 of them, and that's okay. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and move on. Making calculations. So Tiffany knows students at her school like to read things about what is happening on campus. So some teachers gave her graphs of data. Based on your previous work, you can calculate various measurements of data from displays the teacher gave to Tiffany. Review how to calculate each measurement when given a data set. So if you're not sure and you don't remember how to find these things, you can click on this link and you can also print them out for your notes. But remember mean, you add up all your numbers, divide by how many numbers are in your list. Median, order them from least to greatest, cross off left, right, until there's 1 in the middle. There's 2 in the middle, add them together, divide by 2. Range, you take your maximum minus your minimum. So your biggest number minus your smallest number. And then mean absolute deviation, you need to find the mean. Then the distance of each point from the mean. So you're going to subtract those 2 values, and you'll do that with every single piece of data. Add up all those differences together and divide by how many pieces are in your data set. Okay, again, if you don't remember these, click on this link to review them, and you can also print them out. So Tiffany wants to summarize the dot plots by answering the following questions. How many observations are reported in the graph? What is the spread of the data set? What is the center of the data set? And what is the shape of the data set? So the first one, it says a math teacher wants to know how much her students prepared for their most recent test. The teacher surveyed a small group of students and they gave Tiffany a dot plot of the data. What summary can we make from the dot plot? So it says math test study time, number of hours, the smallest one was 1, biggest is 8. And then you can count how many dots we have. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So 15 students were surveyed. So the title tells us the observations are about the amount of time spent studying for a math test. The unit of measure is hours. There are 15 dots in the plot, which means 15 students were surveyed. And then the data from the set is 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3, 3, 6, 7, 7, 7, 7, 8, 8. So remember, each dot represents a piece of data. So you can just pull out that number and write it as a list. And since we can pull out that data, we can actually find some of the center. So because we're allowed to write out the entire data set, you can calculate the center. So the mean, when you add up all those numbers and divide by 15, is 4.6 hours. Remember, you can get a decimal for mean. Median, 3 hours. So when we order them from least to greatest and cross out left, right, we get 3. And although these data are not easily seen in the plot, they can be determined. Notice where the mean and median are in relation to each other on the graph. So the mean was 4.6 and the median was 3. So they are close together, but they're not the same number this time. And that's okay when they're not the same number. The range is 7. So going from 1 to 8, 8 minus 1 gives us that 7. And the interquartile range, remember interquartile range or IQR, you take Q3, quartile 3, and subtract quartile 1, and that gives us 5. The mean absolute deviation, remember our mean that we just talked about was 4.6. So you would take all your pieces of data, subtract that from 4.6, add those all up, and divide by 15. So the mean absolute deviation is 2.4 hours. So from this data set, there's a large spread. The interquartile range is almost as large as the actual range. And then this graph, you should notice there's a big gap in the middle here. It's not symmetrical. There's two clusters, one on the left, one on the right, gap in the middle. So the gap between the clusters tells you that students studied either less than 4 hours or more than 5 hours. So those are some observations that you can make from this dot plot. There's also a box plot example. So a history class is playing a game and the teacher made a box of the results. Create summaries based on the graph below. So the title is Memory Game. It says 36 participants. We have the number of objects recalled and our number lines down here. Our minimum is 7, maximum 15. Quartile 1 looks like it's at 8. Median is 9. Quartile 3, 12. So the title tells you there are 36 participants in the memory game. The unit of measure is the number of objects recalled during the game. Because the box plot represents 50% of the observations, there are 18 observations located in the interquartile range. You can also state that 9 students recalled at least 8 objects or less, which is the amount of the first quartile. This is 25%. So a quarter, or if I take 36 and divide it by 4, we get 9. So that's where that's coming from. The center, okay, remember the only thing that we can see on a box plot is the median because we don't have all the data points, so we can't find the mean. But the median is right here in the middle. That is 9. Okay, that means half of the students recalled at least 9 or more objects here. The spread, the minimum value is 7. We see that with our first whisker, and the maximum is 15. So there is a range of 8. So 15 minus 7 gives us 8. So there's a range of 8 objects recalled. This means that the participants who recalled the most amount of objects remembered 8 or more objects than the participant who recalled the least amount of objects. The interquartile range is 4 objects. So going from Q3, 12 minus 8 gives us 4. So the middle 50% varied by 4 objects recalled. And then the shape, the left side of the box is smaller than the right. So this left side is smaller than the right. Because the median is not dividing the box evenly, the middle half of the data are not symmetrical. So on the left side, a little bit more squished together, right side's more spread out. So it means the first 50% of our data is close together, and then the second half is more spread out. So you can also see the box itself is located closer to the minimum value. And that goes along with the lower half is closer to together, the data. So understanding the shape or the center shape and spread of the distribution allows you to see how they can affect one another, depending on data collected and measurements. So there are 2 practice problems down here. So for the first one, it says a student conducted a survey and created a dot plot. What summary can you make by reading the dot plot below? So go ahead and make some observations. Pause the video if you need to jot down what observations you can make about this dot plot. So here, there's many things that you can pull out, but the data represented amount of sleep time because our title is sleep time. The unit measure is hours. Our number line is labeled number of hours. And then there's 12 observations in the data set. There's 12 dots. You count them all up. Both the mean and median are 10 hours. Okay, remember with dot plots, you can find your measures of center because you have each individual piece of data. You can just list it out. 8, 9, 9, 9, 9, 10, 10, 10, 11, 11, 12, 12. The range is 4 hours. So 12 minus 8 gives us 4. and the interquartile range is 2. The mean absolute deviation is 1 hour. The shape, the data are not symmetrical. Okay, both sides are not the same. We start off low and then go really high. And then there's a peak at 9 hours. So the highest we have is at 9. There's 4 of them there. So 4 students slept 9 hours. Okay. The second practice problem, what summary can you make by reading the graph below? So go ahead, take a moment, pause the video, and make some observations. So the title states there are 50 observations in the data set. So admission cost for 50 school dances. The unit of measure is dollars. Down here we have our cost and it's in dollars. The interquartile range includes 25 observations because it's half of the data set. So 25%, 25%. So our whole box here is worth 50%, and half or 50% of 50 is 25. The median is 14, so the middle, whoops, I didn't mean to highlight the box. The middle here of our box is 14, so that's our median. The spread of the overall data is 11 to 18, so our smallest value is 11, biggest is 18, so 7 would be the range. 18 minus 11 gives us 7. This means there's a $7 difference between the cheapest dance and the most expensive dance. The interquartile range shows that 50% of the data varies by $4. Q3 was 16, Q1, 12. So 16 minus 12 gives us 4. And then the shape, the median is located in the center of the interquartile range. So it's very uniform with our box. The box is relatively centered compared with the overall data. So you can say it's almost symmetrical. So the box looks the same. This whisker looks a little bit longer than our first whisker. So it's not completely symmetrical, but it's very close. Maintaining the average. So Tiffany is almost ready to sign off on all her edits and send the newspaper to the printer. So far, all the articles, graphs, data, and conclusions match up. Now she is waiting for the last article to be submitted for review. Each school newspaper is rated on a 50-point scale. Tiffany's goal is for the club to average a score of 40 points this year. The first 3 editions have scored 38 points, 42 points, and 32 points. She wants to know what score is needed for the last edition to earn this average. Let's see how this is done. You already know how to calculate the mean by dividing the sum of data values by the size of the data set. So mean is the sum divided by the size. So you add up all your numbers, divide by how many numbers are in your list. So let's learn how to use this equation to determine a missing number from a data set when given the mean.
To determine a missing value in a data set when given the mean, you must first calculate the desired sum of the data set. The desired mean is 40. This indicates that if the total possible points are distributed equally among the 4 observations, then each observation is 40. Be careful here. Although you are given only 3 values, you are told the average is out of 4. So make sure you use 4 as your sample size. Therefore, the desired sum of the 4 observations must be 160 because 40 times 4 is 160.
So we already have 3 scores, but we're going to have 4 total. That's why our size is going to be 4 here. So we want our mean to be 40. So to get what our sum should be, we take 40 times 4 to get 160. So when we add up all our numbers, we want to get 160.
Next, you must calculate the sum of 3 known values. 38 plus 42 plus 32 equals 112. This indicates that the club has 112 points out of 160. The difference indicates the score the fourth edition of the newspaper must achieve for the club to reach the score. 160 minus 112 equals 48. So 48
So we add up all the numbers, the three numbers that we have, and we get 112. And then we subtract that from the sum that we want. So 160 minus 112, which leaves us with 48. So the 48 is the fourth piece of data. That's what we need to get an average of 40 points. So let's go ahead and look at this example down here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pull up my camera. There we go. Oh, let me try that again. There we go. All right, so what is the data value that must be added to the following set? So the mean is 5. So we want our mean to be 5. So in order to figure this out, our pieces of data, when we add it together, we have to figure out what that is going to be. So I have 5, and when I set up this equation, remember sum went on top, and then our size is on the bottom. So our mean, we want to be 5. So we want our sum divided by our size to give us this mean of 5. So we know our size. So right now we have 4 numbers. We're going to add another number to this set. So that means we're going to have 5 numbers total. So we already have 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm going to add one more to that list. Okay. I have 2, 3, 5, and 8. And I'm going to add one more. I don't know what that one is yet. So in order to get what my sum is, I'm going to take this and multiply by 5. Because remember, when we were solving equations, the opposite of division is multiplication. So this would cancel out and leave me with my sum. So 5 times 5 is 25. So I know my sum needs to be 25. So now I'm going to go add these numbers up. So 2 plus 3 plus 5 plus 8. So 2 plus 3 is 5, plus 5 is 10, plus 8 is 18. So the numbers that I already have is 18. And now I'm going to go take the 25, which I want my sum to be, and subtract 18 from it. And when I do that, I get 7. So right now there are 4 values. So the size is 5 when one more value is added. If the mean is to be 5, then the sum will be 5 times 5. The current sum is 2 plus 3 plus 5 plus 8, which is 18. And then 25 minus 18 we got here with 7. So the necessary data value is 7. On the next page, you have your practice problems that you are going to complete for homework, or if you have additional time at the end of class, you may complete them during class. So go ahead and go through all of them. Make sure you're understanding them. If you have questions, you can send me a message on Teams. And then I also want you to go through the lesson summary to make sure you're understanding everything. It goes through the dot plots, histograms, and box plots. And you can also print out these notes as well. Okay. Again, if you have any questions, please make sure you ask and let me know. Okay. Have a great day.